Kumar also very kindly agreed that we do the discussion. And as you know that this is a discussion, so you can, we do not have a very well-formed theory of cinema that we can present to you. In a sense, we'll be trying in our own, me in my very small way, Dev Kamal in a slightly bigger way, and Kumar in his ethical way. We will try to develop something around the theory of cinema. And I first request Kumar, to start the conversation, and then one will pick it up.
Thank you for inviting me here, and I've come back to Banaras after so many years. It is as shocking as it was before. So, and as it is in the images that one sees of the Aarti and everything, they are all over the place now. It is a spectacle, like no cinema can be. We all aspire to be in Banaras, ourselves, or creating it wherever we are. Then talk to me about a misunderstanding which has, of course, existed since 1896 about the cinema. And in fact, the technology to this day works with that misunderstanding. It presumes that misunderstanding. Then, when you were telling me to come over, said there seems to be some idea that cinema and theatre are just one and the same thing, And, it's very strange that this cinema started off with the tradition of the proscenium theatre, actually, and never quite left it. And today we have a very deep crisis of technology, and which we discussed, of course, when you came into my place, and he enlightened me further on it, because I'm not a technologist at all, not even crawling in that area. I'm really challenged by it in every possible way. But nevertheless, we have to accept that there is this technological change to the digital mode. It's a very fundamental change, It's not like the technological changes that occurred earlier. You might perhaps know that there was no sound in the beginning of cinema. There was no sound. There was only picture, moving picture. So that's how it was called, the movies. And it attached itself to presenting, through a proscenium-like frame, addressing its audiences in that manner, a little larger than a frame which would otherwise be available, let's say, in a parlor room or about this size actually, this kind of thing. And so the mode seemed to be condemned, sort of, to a theatricality. But within just, I think, 4 or 5 years of the cinema's existence, people could see that the greatest actors were the worst represented through the cinema. They became caricatures of themselves. In France, it was Saravanan was considered to be like a diva, a star, a goddess, if you like. And there are still pictures of that, which, the archiving, for instance, in France and the United States is fantastic. We have lost a lot of our material, and at every moment that I have an opportunity to talk to people in different parts of India and abroad, I beg of them to please preserve all arts, of course, but definitely cinema is something that you can more easily preserve than any other art. And the thing is that in turn, cinema itself preserves other arts. All the films that I have made have been inspired or in some way triggered by the other arts. In fact, I was once in California, and Peter Wallen said to me, he's no more, I think, but at that time he said, why don't you just take over from me? He was teaching cinema and the other arts. What is the interrelationship? And he has written beautifully on that, and also on the entire semiological study of the cinema in English was largely introduced by him. And he was able to put it across to them, not to read it as a transparent image. Because on the one hand, while people rejected very quickly the theatrical, the proscenium theatrical, if you like, they shifted to a very vulgar naturalism, and that has done a lot of harm to cinema, because it is an abandoning of the very fundamental drive in people, in us as human beings, to try and develop science, and not to just work with reality in its brute form. There is no such thing actually as one brute reality. And why should one work with that brute reality? Anyway, if you're an artist, you've got to transform it, you've got to suggest something else, you've got to have, resort to different angas of music, for example, or different kinds of figures of speech, the metaphor, metonymy, etc., and alankaras of different kind. Without that, what is the point of just imitating reality? So much of the theory around cinema got, in fact, trapped in that discourse of how to make significant what appears to be absolutely mundane, everyday, insignificant banal, you know. And so when theatre was rejected, and you know, things like somebody having a cup of tea was shown on the screen, they said, what is all this about? This is nonsense, you know. You know, we are used to great tragedies, you know, great epics. And what is all this? Somebody having a cup of tea, is it worth talking about? What is the meaning of it? And they were right in a way. Because if it stopped there, it has no meaning, there is no purpose. You know? In fact, very often I used to say this to Shotaji Rai, and I worked with Bansi Chandra, who is absolutely great art director. And he did a marvelous job, which you may have seen in both my first two films, you know, of the walls and the moisture contained in the walls, the history of the wall, you know. And Smita Patil used to joke with me, and whenever I take a shot with her, she would say, oh, but you're not interested in me, you're only interested in the wall. You know? So, and I didn't quite deny it. I said, I am rather interested in the wall. So, but with a lot of so-called realists, one is not able to even converse with them about the necessity to make significant what seems to be insignificant without significance. And of course, one of the greatest things that ever happened in the history of art, I think, was the discovery and of Kuleshov, that when you have somebody, just a face, and you have a cup of tea in the next, or a bowl of soup, juxtaposed to it, immediately it triggers a number of possibilities. You know, you can think whether this man is hungry, you know, or you can think that this man doesn't want the soup, that's why he's not, you know, he's being imposed on him. You can think he's ill, you know, because he's not having the soup. And so on. And once your mind starts speculating on this, and the tonal relationships within these, at that time, when Kuleshov made this experiment, there was no color, there was no sound. And there was, of course, line and tone, black and white. So already, in a sense, the black and white, the advantage with black and white, in a reductive way, if you like, is that of abstraction immediately. Already, and especially in the Christian tradition, possibly in the Islamic one also, I'm not sure, and the Judaic one, color is sort of looked down upon. Even now, sometimes painters say, you know, my own daughter, you know, I won't do color. And some painters, very accomplished painters, say that. I don't know whether it is because they are not able to handle it, or because there is a sure development through religion in those parts of the world where color is looked upon as so sensual that you can't abstract from it, which is wrong, of course. I don't agree with it at all. I love color, and So actually, the tonal relationships there would then settle you perhaps into a certain direction about this bowl of soup and this man. And then if the next shot that comes, let's say it's a storm outside, then you have to reinterpret that. So it has nothing to do with the starvation, it has nothing to do with this thing, but maybe there is a storm-like situation somewhere in his nervous system. I don't know what, You can think of enormous number of, depending again on the tonal relationships there. So that actually freed cinema from theatre. Because it was the tonal relationships which became more important. Then people started thinking, can we make something like music through cinema? All right, we forget about theatre. Can we make something like music? And of course, the great, perhaps to this day, the greatest of all filmmakers, he was certainly so for Ritika. Eisenstein, he certainly so for me, and to a number of other people. The greatest thinker of cinema. He has one small section, I don't remember in which book of his, on overtonal montage. And his film also, I think, inspired Roland Barthes to speak of the oblique meaning, which is like Vyanjana. Yeah, it's an oblique meaning. It is something I have not read other people use much, but it is like that. Overtonal montage is also basically that. And it is only through overtonality that both in picture and in sound that we are able to come anywhere close to music. And go through colors, sound. In color as well, like of course in music we all know because you heard him already yesterday. You can see, if you can hear the upper Gandhar by tuning the Tanpura, the Shajya Pancham thing. Or like they were discussing just now outside, in a rag where there's Lalit, where Pancham is Varjit, you still hear it, and you even tune the Tanpura with the Pancham. That means that it is again how do you hear it? You hear it because there is no overtone, you don't strike it. In fact, the whole thing is about that. And in color also, you can do that. A color, in fact, does not exist unless it comes into contact with another color. And the moment it comes into contact with the other color, it sets up not just one, but several resonances, so that you begin to they speak about it as simultaneous contrast. It's not enough. Actually, all the contrasts emerge the moment it moves out. Now, when the talkies started, when the sound began to come into this sphere, of course the actor again became very, very important. And the mainstream Hollywood, etc., or anything like Hollywood in every country, began once again to forget about all this what we have spoken and only concentrate on the actor. And of course, you can see that that's how it is now with the digital medium. Which is very curious, because the digital medium actually does not allow the actor to be herself or himself. It cannot. Those pixels always add up to the same expression. Very often people have come to me with the video. They're forecasting. Come and I tell them, look, I won't be able to cast if I look at this, because you look like anybody else. But I mean, look-wise it may be slightly some difference which I can easily morph within. If I tell my son-in-law, for example, once I told him that, what I want is, Tagore has a painting which he has made with letters, and he has called it the Charms, something like that. So I told him, and the foolish designers of course didn't use it and lost it. It's terrible. He gave me, he's paid something like astronomically normally for any minute he spends. But these fellows didn't desire, they threw it away. But I told him, so this is a jar which is made up of letters by Tagore. And these are the colors. You can see them. And now what I want you to do is to morph it into a space which is like I'm inside that jar. But take all the elements from that jar, which is not a jar, right? So the digital medium has this tremendous potential of doing this, tremendous potential, and he did it. It took him, I think, about an hour. That's all. So I can do that if I have the right technicians whom I can pay. The digital image can be even self-generated. You don't need the referencing. It can be totally self-generated. And yet, what has happened is that it is now performance-oriented. This is ridiculous. Why should it be? Of course, some people who are very big businessmen know that they don't need any performance. So they have made these very, very big budget animation films like Avatar, of which I have only seen action and small portions, which have no aesthetic whatsoever. It's just animation because it's the technology. The technology has to find its aesthetic. There's been a big problem even on a smaller scale with say a zoom lens and the change of high speed, low speed film. But the fundamental greatest problem is the self-generation in the digital medium and the possibility of not having, not the possibility, but this terrible problem of having no redundancy and no randomness in it. no noise, supposedly, visibly, let's say, or whatever, audibly. But as Jyoti pointed out, that there is a noise which becomes very apparent to people who are working in the lab with it. If you're doing restoration, for instance, it becomes very apparent that even if you want, what the nature of that noise is, he will be able to explain. I am not, because I have no technology. There was one person who was the head of telecommunications or something. He had explained it to me. He also gave it a name, which I've forgotten. But what I know now through my praxis is that if I want to change, like an area within, and I succeeded, making them look like, what's your name? Sorry? I can make you look like her or she like you. But in the meantime, everybody else's face also will change because of the noise it creates. So it's a big problem. And it has its advantages, of course. And the entire problem, the other day I was discussing, I wasn't discussing, I was listening to my brother on the phone. He was phoning from Madras. He's a scientist, a retired scientist. He's many years older than I. And suddenly he talked to me of an episode when he had been invited by the Prime Minister of the country to talk about certain experimentation in therapy through kind of methods of biofeedback, through looking, like looking at something or hearing something and restoring one's functions, through that. And the point is, then he had to visit several labs at that time. And at a certain point, the scientists that he was trying to talk to said that these are our results from the digital intervention. And he was asking them, please look at the intervention that you do through other means, non-digital means. And they didn't want to. And I've had this frustration myself, because every time I meet scientists, they say that we have these fixed results and nothing can be better than that. But, one just points out to them that these results are results. These results come out of a certain mindset, as well as what you're examining, what is your telescope or microscope or whatever. Your tools are determining the result already. And they refuse to admit this. Now, so we find this problem again and again with our sponsors, very often with our actors, and now even technicians who are I love cinema technicians, which include from the top, like KK or Shubhrata Mitra. They were temperamental and difficult people, but they never would be so dogmatic, because that it was possible to always try and know something differently, and therefore to present a sign which is different. That they were always looking for that opportunity, But things have changed, and a remarkable way, and now, and it is not a generation gap at all. It's nothing to do with that. It is a technological gap and a misunderstanding which will soon be removed, I'm sure. Because I don't think digital has to get itself free from cinema. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't need a damn screen of that kind. This whole environment will be, I read in the papers that they've already introduced that. This whole environment can be virtually created where, you can feel sensations that you have never felt before, and hear music that you could not have heard before because the nature of the noise is different. So that's, I think, if we want to create a theory of cinema and the other arts, including the digital, or the arts of the future, this is a wonderful time because we can really speculate. Thanks very much.
Kumar was my teacher in SRFTI, and it's again a kind of great honor to be with him and basically listening to him. I think, Kumar has already stated the question of generational gap. Many people tend to think that, digital is the currency and why not, and there is a question of advancement of technology. And cinema is born out of technology, so why not? So the crucial thing is that, especially the people who are accustomed at this point of time and looking at cinema with the current apparatus, how it is possible? What can be the methodology to make them sensitive to the question of the chemical process, to the aspect of chemical process. What I would like to do is that basically, because Kumar is present, so I would like to put a few questions and look for some of the directions in terms of answers. So now what I feel, even, I am related to FTI in some sense, so we see students who don't have the sense of distinction. The sense of distinction is gradually fading away. And cinema is everything from looking at a print being projected at a theater down to a copied version, downloaded version on laptop screen. So this range, the total range of sensorial experiences are being looked at as cinematic experience. So how to create the sense of differentiation? Other than that, we are in a kind of situation that without the sense of differentiation, even a theoretical speculation cannot even possible. One of the other important aspect is that, some of the thoughts about ontology of cinema, like Andre Baza, when he mentioned about one of the ontological conditions of cinema is that in front of camera there has to be a reality. There is an ontological relationship of what is in front of camera and what is being recorded. So with the advent of digital, that ontological reality is being seriously questioned. So whether we need different terms for, whether silent cinema is a different medium than talkie, whether the film made on celluloid is a different medium than the audiovisual expressions made on digital. So these distinctions need to be inquired in some formal way. Only then we can have certain sense of emergence of a theory. One of the other questions I would like Kumar to address that at some point of time, especially, Kumar got some of the very significant mentors of his time, like starting from Ritik Ghatok, D.D. Koshambi, people like that. So there is this anxiety I have found in, especially who are coming to the Film Institute for learning cinema. Which may not be the case actually, because digital proposes that it is so accessible, anybody can make a film and people are making film in a way. Is there a kind of, how to address the creative anxiety of a student learner? What are the questions he needs to address before really taking his first shot? Is there a process? Is there a kind of, can we stratify those questions, those anxieties in some form, or is it really something one can, as the technology offers you, as the technology conditions you, and you come up with the result, is it such a straight relationship? So. In fact, whatever we have seen in the sort of paradigm of 20th century, from the very beginning itself, the speculation about cinema started. What is this new medium? Is it just a technological gimmick? Like there were many kinds of audiovisual expressions, audiovisual toys. Those got invented and sort of faded away. Now they are parts of history. Obviously, they had their contributions in time. So, but cinema, many people look at cinema with certain sense of marvel. And one of the, very early speculations within 1914, I guess, Hugo Munsterberg. So he was a psychologist, and he mentioned that cinema is a medium which comes very close to the processes of mind. So in mind, there are stages of attention, there are stages of reflection, stages of imagination or recollection. In cinema, we can see those in materialized terms. So cinema can offer those possibilities. And here is being discovered almost like 8-9 decades later. That time he was not referred much at that point of time. And there is also this constant debate that whether cinema is a composite art, whether cinema takes a bit from every art and tries to make it in a composite way. And there is this constant search that is there any intrinsic property of cinema which is fundamentally different from all other arts. In fact, in 20th century we find that it is not only a question of cinema. Even some of the practitioners who are working at theatre, suppose Grotowski, he was also thinking that what is the fundamental requirement of theatre? When he comes up with the answer that it's only the human body, nothing else. So you need a human body. So there are speculations about cinema also, in a way, that what is the most crucial, essential thing, without that cinema cannot be possible. And there were some answers regarding that as well. And in Indic tradition, we see, obviously the Indic tradition got suspended, there was not much contribution that happened during the era of cinema. That there are these notions that every art form has certain formal sort of elements. Every art form has some formal sort of underneath. There are some platforms, formal platforms. What we see as an art form, it can be analyzed to certain formal bases, and these formal elements can be recombined to create other art experiences. So I'm just trying to mention that when we are at a possibility of thinking about the possibility of cinema, there is obviously the crisis of losing the sense of differentiation. On the other hand, there is this stream of thought that for an art form, what is the most essential component is speculation about that, and for an art form which can provide a space for new kinds of configuration of formal elements of other art forms. So that is also something, in a way, a new possibility that possibly couldn't have been achieved before the advent of that art form. So these two ways, these two sort of approaches, if we keep side by side, I would like to sort of ask my other panelists, including Kumar, what kind of possibility we can look in this framework? Because especially in those countries which had a continuation of artistic tradition going back into millennia. So those countries always took some significant cues from the pre-existing artistic forms that got reflected in cinema. And some countries obviously didn't have that tradition. So there the possibility of cinema emerges in a different way. And one of the, again, in this condition, if we consider cinema as the camera recorded on a chemical base, and there is an ontological part of reality in front of camera, then how it is possible that that camera records, the basic principle of operation of camera. Camera is a tool. It is a mechanical tool, and it is operating through some principles. And the film which is running through it is operating on some basic physical principles which cannot be violated at all. Those are absolutely foundational physical principles. But a product gathered from that, a time-space fragment recorded through that camera, how can it provide possibilities so that the foundational principles of the instrument can be overcome? The mechanical principles of the tool of the camera, the way it appropriates space, the way the time gets recorded. When two fragments got joined, then what are the possibilities so that the foundational mechanical principles can be transcended? For me, I think, that might be a key search for a filmmaker who is trying to look at a critical time to look at the medium in a sort of significant way. So I really would like to sort of take Kumar and to take some of the questions, and also if you can reflect more on that.
One way of overcoming this limitation by the technology, as was practiced by filmmakers like Kumar or Mani, was through color. And because this whole thing about the perspective was very much there, and how to overcome, because perspective, the moment you put on a lens, perspective will come into play immediately. And as in the morning Navjyoti was saying, the gaze is imprisoned in the perspective. It gets locked. And so how to free it? And I think, at least in one film that I noticed it very, very clearly, it's Kasbah, that Kumar made with on the Chekhov's story, is that through the movement of the actors and the colors, and also juxtaposing it with a certain kind of sound, he could really overcome to a great extent the locking of the gaze. So, and that actually came from miniature paintings. So in a sense, Dev Kamal's inquiry is valid, that these solutions may have their seeds in other art forms, and they'll have to be differently seen. Of course, when you transmute them into cinema, then and then I could really see that in this film Kasbah, that and this was not through technique purely. I mean, the technique was there, of course, a very great cameraman was there, K.P. Mahajan, but through various kinds of colors that were used, the various kinds of sounds that came into being, that were there, through them, this whole locking in the perspective was overcome to a great extent. Of course, there was this memory that locking would have taken place. So that trace was, of course, there that you can't remove, I think. But that becomes possible by this one. And the other is, I think that I've seen this young filmmaker, and I saw his film, Amit's film, and he actually took a shot that I felt very interesting from a very distance, a very long shot. And somebody is moving in oblique, he's moving obliquely, and through that movement also, he could to some extent free that. I mean, I felt as if he is doing something which is also there in miniature, because in miniatures also these diagonals are there. So I think there's a number of at least a few Indian filmmakers, as I know of, that without turning it into some kind of spectacle of technology, they have very subtly undid that, so that the image could, the cinematic image could release the energy bouts, it could release a lot of energies and a lot of insights. And so that is of course one way. And I do think that cinema, the history, if you go into the image, I do think that this shuttle theatre, etc. was there in its past. And, I mean, this is not pure coincidence that a lot of filmmakers have attempted to make films on these things, like in shadow theatre or Chitrakathi and all that. And even in the individual cases, you may find people like Bergman, I think that they used to project some images on the wall and he would move it and all that. So that is there already. Cinema to a great extent has come out of a certain, of course it has come out of technology basically, but it has also come out of certain moving images, or an image and the sound coming together. That was there in, I do think that that's also there in a lot of Jati Puranas, which were being read by, the heads of various, the Purohits of various Jatis, and they would unfurl the entire story of that particular Jati, and will go on narrating something along with that. So that, and you are gradually revealing one image after the other. So all that was of course there. And yet, when camera came, something completely new happened. And I also think that this is also because of the time that you can play with. Like for example, as a writer, I always feel that there's a lot of restriction about the tense, the past tense, future tense, and now I often think that you see, even if I write about the past, that pastness will come in the sentence. So I'll use a certain tense. Now in cinema, that's not very essential because you can have 2-3 times together. Like for example, you can have an actor who is playing the role of an adult character, and you can have another actor who is playing the role of the young or the child of that same character, and you can put them together and there will be no, so new configurations of time in cinema, I thought, became possible because of the, of course, editing and because of the technology that it had. So I thought that this and that was then taken up, I think, in a lot of paintings also. It came from there. For example, there are paintings now where you find these play of Mentas, where you find the foot moving. So you have the two movements of the foot at the same moment. So that has come from cinema.
Actually, would somebody from amongst you tell us what is, are we just gapping and talking and all this, or does it interest you? So if you raise some questions which they have.
About the sacred debate of that Christian might be opening a new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
Or probably it's a very fundamental change which is going to come, and it's really great time for theorizing about these matters, and that looks good. One of the elements which cinema is digital thing is bringing in is that it is the performative portion of cinema will go up. Completely. Another thing, in the interiors of cinema, I mean the semantics of cinema, the architecture, the locale, etc. will also
disappear.
become fluid, malleable, completely fluid, to be managed with this. This will happen, and probably also the old theatre kind of stuff may come back. Very old style. That immersion environments can also become different. Right now it's purely visual environment. You just see the screen. But it will be much more other kind of elements in the immersive space. So those kind of things may come up, including tactile.
Sorry?
Including
tactile
aspect, because touch at a distance is being experimented, and voice at a distance, and vision at a distance is well sort of worked on. But touch at a distance, they are gone. So that kind of things will come up. Whenever we put all of these together, the digital kind of art forms, new art forms, is that this actual human sort of life, actual life, because this digital thing can only be a reduction of actual life in its variety of real problems and the real issues of life. They will remain external to digital. Whatever one makes digitally.
That is the problem. That if we actually only go by the sensation, and not produce a sign, it excludes the sign. If we go, this was one of my very difficult colleagues, if you like, in the international arena, was Jean-Marie Stone, who's made a wonderful film on Bach, which is a completely imaginary thing, possibly. He's called it the Chronicle of Anna Magdalena Bach, but possibly some of it is reinvented, because he was trying to get to a certain sign through music, and it's very, has anyone seen it yet? Yes. So anyway, you would know that. Now, actually Mani and I were together at a festival, and Mani told him, "You want to see Kumar has made this." My very first film, he saw a few weeks, and he said, "I like it very much." So I said, "Why?" He says, "Because it's so warm." So I said, "Everybody tells me that it's very cold. You're the first person who says it's warm. And what do you mean?" He says, "Because you are not stuck to the sensation of anything. The warmth comes from something else." So, like if the digital, for instance, goes into the tactile, actually, if it just sticks to the sensation of the tactile, for instance, or anything else, then the sensation destroys the possibility of sign. As a result, it can get to, if it stops there. On the other hand, it can not stop there. By giving you the tactile sensation, if it changes your experience of an emotion or living life itself. See, the problem has been, since digital technology has come in, and since also it is connected also with the post-war economy, post-Second World War economy. That's how bigger and bigger screens take television and the bigger screen, etc., trying to make sensate, create a false warmth instead of a real warmth. If something of that, trying to create that warmth comes in. The Bresson, for example, I read this very recently, comparatively, on the net. Somebody was interviewing him, and he asked him, asked him about his religious thinking. He says, "Yes, I believe in God." So then that person tries to persist with him and says, "What about the others who don't believe in God, but you still like their work?" Or something to that effect. So he said, "I don't believe that they don't believe in God. Nobody can help it. They all believe in God." His thing is that now I don't believe in God, but Bresson believes in me. That's a strange thing, because there is whole notion of science, that he tries to create, and the freedom through that. So that there is a warmth in every move. Something like that. There is something deeper, something which will connect with life. But otherwise, what is happening is what you are saying, that 99% of mainstream cinema just doesn't, not only mainstream cinema, every form of mode of discourse has become too, superficial. And of course, with the tactile things coming in, it will be even more so.
It cuts both ways. Because one is that even if we are watching cinema, purely audiovisual kind of thing, the only source for making a meaning out of cinema is just those pixels.
Sorry, I didn't get
The
that.
pixels
Ah,
are the material things, the light particles, light bundles. So only reality at that time is pixels. Out of the dancing of pixels, some significance is created
yeah,
inside,
right.
which is a cinema. It's
Yeah.
created. Now, there is nothing in between those pixels and the cinema, except you. Nothing in between. So, it depends on the artist. Now, entirely person goes to artists to great work there and not so great work. Similarly, if there are these sensation things also, like color, like this, they only add some possibility. It is up to the artist to explore depths in that medium. That burden is of artists.
It's also the burden of the spectator. And of the society in which you created, because so often I can't blame the spectator. Like in theatre, for instance, Brecht had a terrible problem. He said the spectator is exploited. You can deal with exploitation, but what do you do with exploitation? It's too much. It's really a huge problem. And given that everything is being addressed as if it were only a sensation without meaning, the politicians say the same thing. Everybody who's marketing is saying the same thing.
Performative component also might not get emulated fundamentally from cinema, even if it goes entirely digital. Some performative element may still linger on in this, because like to get variety in expressions from a digitally, how would you get that? So you have to go back to some performative element.
But it reduces it so much, I wonder very often I wonder what our actors are going to do. And imagine, after all, actors are such wonderful, they are a necessity for us, because through them we recognize many things. But if they are limited or reduced in their expressions, what has happened already is that people in response also reduce their expression. And it gets into slots, and then nobody believes anybody else naturally, because if I say I love you and it means nothing, that's the end of the story, But what else will you believe? So, if you keep on saying something which you do not believe yourself all the time.
So certain amount of vividity.
Certain amount of
vividity, the details, the vividness of actor or of real situations, that would be flattened.
That would be?
Flattened.
No, it's flattened. Yeah.
Flattened on the digital thing.
It is.
And the people will try to sort of...
for instance, Michael Jackson's dance, the so-called moonwalk, is not a real dance. It's a virtual dance. Even when he's on the stage, because what is that? It's computerized lighting, which is moving at a certain pace, So that what you see then is something else from what he's doing, And I remember when Michael Jackson came to India, Bombay, I was at the somebody at the last minute invited me to come and I was observing things like one person said that Prabhu Deva is very sad he can't make it. But Prabhu Deva actually does what Michael Jackson cannot do. He doesn't have that computerized lighting equipment which Michael Jackson has. So the real thing is forgotten. In fact, by the person who he himself, and he was getting sad that he could not beat Michael Jackson. But he's a far greater dancer than Michael Jackson. That even in so-called reality, we are seeing a total illusion. I don't know what Plato would have thought of this.
Another aspect is that it may be quite possible that in future, 100 years or so, that prevalent views of the world about the cosmology and reality may turn out to be a discrete view. That reality fundamentally is discrete, and there are people now trying to speculate like that, and that there is no continuum.
There is no
Continuum. The continuum is not there. It's an illusion of some kind. It's scaffold. It's a kind of scaffold which people put in onto the world. So even physical reality, cosmic reality, everything, human reality, everything is fundamentally discrete. In that case, cinema has given a mystique to the world, which is how from discrete set of frames, 24 per second something, a continuous flow is created. It is absolutely unique to cinema that this has happened. No other art form gives the illusion of this flow. And so continuity can still be there even if the reality is discrete. This idea is something which is for a film as a practice inspires a discrete view of reality in future. Totally. Everything is so. The discrete view doesn't mean that it's a digital view of reality. Digits are only signs. There are only literals, but actually really discreet. That's it. If that is true, then what we are seeing a transformation of all arts via digital would be serious affair. Would be not just transformation of cinema, but all art forms.
Yeah.
All art forms, the way they will transform. And that will become does it sound very grave or? But is not that performance is like a twist thing? Behind the mind, somebody in that table, wrote somewhere, some other person there, and then you put it together. No, it's not really performance. For a witness, witness is silence.
One is destroying reality and the other is destroying the sense of reality. What gets actually initially affected? When you are judging that the intrusion of technology has really marginalized almost the rejection of the real, then it seems that we are standing outside. On the one hand technology, on the other hand reality, we are speaking a third person stand up and judging what is doing what. Take the other side. Say for example, a person has been born and brought up in a society where there was everyone is blind by one. Then when he comes to a society, he passes having both eyes, he will say this is something unreal. James Wells had told a story that imaginary story that due to some radioactive explosion, a particular locality, the people of all the locality have been affected. When the next generation of sons and daughters born, all are affected, but a single one was perfect. No one. And when these persons, that was the imagination, when these persons look at us, they think they are the real and not real. So there are three different aspects. One is third person's perspective, and one is the perspective of the real, third is the perspective of the virtual. So when virtual real, this they are allowed to communicate between themselves, then there is no solution. The virtual might think that I am real and that is unreal. And they might say they are real and the virtual is unvirtual. But when only we interpose a third perspective, like us standing apart from both of them, we can judge. But the question is, offers the possibility of a neutral standpoint, purely spectator standpoint. How much that is real, how much that is available, how much that is affected, and how much that is inevitable. So this issue recurs in every field of theory, in epistemology, art, every field is there. So there are two views current. One is every perception is theory related. There is no pure spectator's perception, no pure spectator's perspective. The spectator is already contaminated by the same thing by virtual, the real is already contaminated. So what I think from a theoretical point of view we should address is how far we can clarify the possibility and reality of a third person perspective.
Yeah, I said, how do you see the possibility of Bressonian cinema or Bressonian theory in the future of cinema?
You mean how would it be transformed with the new media? Well, of course, it's a very speculative thing. I don't see it being achieved through the same means what he was trying to achieve. Because I watched him very closely with the means that he employed, like I was telling her, that her face, was just like what I expected through the voice that I had on the phone, which she said so was mine, which is fantastic. But Bresson used to cast through the voice, not through the face, not through the body. He used to refuse to even meet the person and see the photograph of it. It was only through and even me was asking to be, just to meet him, he did that. This procedure he followed for all his actors, but I was only asking to meet him. And he made me phone him several times. And then again, when in principle he had agreed that I can work with him, again he made me phone him several times. He had to get the sign of divinity within me to accept me as his assistant. But that's what he was looking for in the world. So he had a very eccentric way of doing it. I can't even begin to think of affording such a way of working. But when it comes to the work, we used to take 40 takes of one shot. 40 times and rehearse so often. Like if I were to say, just no, that's all. So he'll make me say it 40 times, rehearse it 40 times, and do it again 40 times, and decide which shake of the head and no was revealing something of the cosmos, if you like. Because you're not interested in my psychology or the character, he's not interested. So he's interested in the divine sign. And why not? Because he has every right to do so. So of course, this came out of the very need to take shots in a certain way. Now what happens with digital technology? Even Hema Malini is complaining about this. If people tell me, you dance anyway, we'll look after it. Hey, in the post we will do everything. You have to do this, instead you do this, it doesn't matter. So obviously this won't work. A new kind of, the means would have to be different. But the truth that he was searching, everybody has wanted to search in some way or the other. In that sense, he's right. Everybody believes in God. Even I believe in God because I am looking for the divine sign. So I do. Otherwise, how can we live? It's not possible. You can't live. The instinct to know, that I think in a way he was also saying that it is threatened in a way. But when he's talking of the discrete as the continuum, and the continuum finding itself in the history, which is a unique combination of cinema. I think Jacobson and all also have spoken about this. That this is something that Brecht could not understand. I wish he were alive, because I'm very sympathetic to it. But he couldn't understand it, this particular aspect, what he was doing. So that we have to, if we want to continue to, it is part of our human nature to want to know. Hopelessly part of our nature. All tragedy is based on that. All epics are based on that. So we can't help but know. That's the unknown is staring at us all the time. So there will be something, some way out, which we cannot predict at the moment, which comes to practice.
सुबह नवज्योति जी बात कर रहे थे गेज का, और तो जब फिल्म बनता है तो जब आप किसी चीज को देखते हैं तो एक तरह का उसमें परिसीमन है, फिर जब उसको थ्रू कैमरा आप ले जाते हैं तो वो एक तरह का परिसीमन है. बट इन योर फिल्म फॉर एग्जाम्पल 4 अध्याय फिल्म में अब पिछली बार मैंने चौथी बार देखी तो मुझे हर बार उसमें कुछ नई चीज समझ आती है. एक चीज तो ये थी कि जो इला और अतीम के बीच का जो प्रेम है वो कहानी के थ्रू नहीं, वो जो टोनल क्वालिटी है उसके थ्रू भी प्रकट होता है. एंड दो रस हैं, उनके बीच का रेंज है, जहाँ एक तरफ क्रांति है, वीर रस है और श्रृंगार है, उसके बीच वो फिल्म पूरे वक्त मूव करती रहती है. लेकिन मैं ये कह रही थी कि ये जो दो चीजें बीच में आई, एक तो खुद फिल्मकार का देखना और दूसरा कैमरा. लेकिन फिर भी अगर मैं 4 अध्याय के माध्यम से बात कहूँ तो वो जो चिदाकाश है, यानी वो जो मूवमेंट ऑफ द स्पेस है, उसमें you can feel the feeling of the chidakash of the filmmaker. So how it happens? I mean that.
Yeah, it is. It's like KK used to tell it. He had come for 2 or 3 days, for the shooting. So he came only. So 2-4 गालियाँ भी खाई, ऐसे क्या कर रहे हो, इतनी लंबी डायलॉग क्यों लिखे हैं, जैसे फिल्म, how can you do this with the precisely, so all, I'll tell you the tensions through which finally that is produced, what you're talking about. So we had also gone to Shanti Niketan together, and of course there's this great artist who was still alive, Shobnath Kaur, and Shobnath had given me one of his works, which is still with me at home, because of also Ritik's connection and so on. And KK saw so many, I took KK there to see that, to see all of the work that Shobnath still. You must have seen quite a few, at least 100. You also saw. And he then tells me that night KK did not sleep at all. And what Kate told me was that all we are doing, all we have done so far is nonsense. And mind you, he's telling me, you know, I, in a way, have nurtured him, he nurtured me, because we were really hard. So I said, okay, we will now do something which is probably forget about all the nonsense and do something else. So one thing we settled on was to work from that. As against the dialogue that was written. And of course the God's own work. So there's a tension as well as which Tagore himself at that time was experiencing between the word and the image. And he wanted to create an image through word through image. You know, an impossible task. He had also this wonderful statement about cinema, that it must free itself from the word. And he wanted to free his image from the word, he wanted to free the word from the image. You know? And when Rimli and I went first, before I took them, the first thing we did was to look at the manuscript to Shanti. We had gone, and that's when I got that Shobnath's thing. And then the first thing we looked at in the manuscript was all the scratches. So these were the kind of inputs which I slowly built. And also there were some very spontaneous things that happened. Like when it suddenly rained, I wanted to capture the moisture that, or when the moss that had come up on the terrace. It was somewhere else, not there. Somewhere else, Tagore speaks about the number of greens that are there, and that's the only descriptive passage in that book. The rest is dialogue. So then, when I was taking the shot of the feet and the moss, it was suggesting something else which I didn't know at that time. So I told KK right then, as we were taking the shot, to come back. We were there in that house. These are the kind of things which allow you to bring out something that is not. One can't put one's finger on it.
Well, in a way it's a very stupid question to ask, but the kind of prognosis that you made. Now, in this digital age, will there be a sense of good cinema and bad cinema? And as a spectator also, will I have that sense of good and bad? Because if everything is mocked, everything is digitized,
Yeah.
where does that lead the spectator? And of course,
It's
you've
a
already
big-
talked about it. It's a big if.
Big price. You've got only, like he was saying, so many of the students, how to teach them to discriminate in a very nice way between one image and another, and then the image together, and in what format. It's very
But
difficult.
is that the
I was
crisis
shocked.
of cinema only, or is it the crisis of the whole of postmodernist discourse? They are raising questions of the kind that you are raising of cinema.
It is a crisis of attention. Yeah. Crisis of yeah.
happens is that the new medium, the new possibilities come, but the possibilities have not exhausted. And there are certain filmmakers in various parts of the world. They are looking at the signatures for what is a digital signature. I mean, digital signature is something one is told that cloning, it generates itself. If that is the signature, if those are the primary signatures we get, can we make that a content of the film? Can we make that the primary sort of offering of the film? So, I'm just saying, I mean, these are random examples, I mean, not going by the good cinema, bad cinema, this thing. But it's interesting that a film called Memento came in 2001 or 2000, which actually deals with a story of characters, revenge, lot of things. But it has a question, it has a element of short-term memory loss. That a person forgets after every 5 or 15 minutes that whatever has happened before that. So his cache memory is of 15 minutes. And there are certain other elements that he imagines something and he writes everything. I mean, whatever he uses his body as his memory tool. Okay. So the film itself is composed in a way so that the audience also cannot memorize that what is the narrative of the film. So some of the people commented that that this is a signature. Obviously, this is made in 2001 and the new millennium, new kind of euphoria, whatever it is. But why suddenly the crisis of memory from the content of the film is being passed on to the cognitive ability of the audience? Many people in the internet, what they did, I mean, many websites or many blogs, etc., they tried to figure out what exactly was the narrative thread of the film. But I mean, possibly I think the offering of the film is that. So now we are in a situation that we are living on short-term memory and we are having certain memory lapses as a kind of basic cognitive condition of the present. So there is no point actually to address that situation that okay, we take parts of memory and put it in order and find the original thread of memory along timeline. So I am giving this one example. So there might be other examples one can find. So the struggle with the new medium, I mean, it is on. I mean, people are dealing it with through several means. And to reflect on Professor Mukhopadhyay's question that can there be a third position? Can there be a third position between the sort of debating parties between real and virtual? So, what would be the location of the transcendental position? Where would be the locus, the transcendental locus? I mean, if it has to stay somewhere, what would be the location? So, I mean, the way we think about, say, 2000 years back, that time we were not there, but things in some way filter down to us, we imagine certain things, we create certain links, we create an image. So that image, the image of 2000 years back is a virtual image in a sense, because we cannot really certify that, we cannot really visit that in our bodily terms. So I think that in a way our imagination needs to play a kind of role of an interlocutor between this, if we consider this debate is a potent one, that real vis-a-vis virtual, and everyone is claiming to be the authentic party. So I think
it was this, that where from we begin, we find a concern.
Sorry?
We begin with a concern. Something was happening right now, and in which we perceive that our settled habits, settled belief system, settled value system are being challenged. At this we feel certain concern. If we did not feel concern, then we would not have reacted to this. Supposing by some means, by some condition, this sense of concern is lost, then we will not feel that there is a problem.
That's true.
So we are already incorporated in the system itself. So a digital जो culture, the technological जो culture, its real danger is not that. And so long there is no danger, or not much danger, so long we perceive that there is a danger. But what is dangerous is this, gradually we are getting so used to it, we are becoming a part of it, that one day we will not find any problem in it. We will not find it to be a digital, a virtual. We will find itself as a real. We become so conditioned. So long, I think, this is no actual location where the third person is this. The third person is there. The location of the third person is just a concern. So long you have that concern, so long you have that feeling, so long you are responding, you are still there. When that is lost, I think this third person. So this debate between whether the possibility of third person is there or not, my answer is this: in the very question, it is admitted that there is still a third person. So I am a believer that always this judgment will be possible, and so long the judgment will be possible, we will challenge it, we will try to modify it, resist it. Whether it succeed or not, that's a different.
Sorry? Color. Yeah.
Any hue is always with another hue.
Yes.
So suppose let us take one character. It's very colorful character. Now we can paint the character. So when we paint the character, we may use different colors, different hues, different shades. And now the same character we're imagining as a moving image, say in cinema.
Yeah.
Now, how do we replace whatever we are painting using, the material body of the pigments, in place of moving image? So, is it so that movement, there could be many movements in the character. Do we find the vibration of the color in the movements?
It's a very important question, because what happens is that most theories of color and most practices of color are actually render everything static. And then when you put it in front of a lens, it's all the more what they have already talked about, fixed perspectives of the lens, etc. But the principal compositional element in any shot, and therefore in a film, is movement. So the choice of the colors have to be adjusted to the, like he was saying about the mise en scène of Chekhov. Because we took the colors, since I was shooting in Kangra, I took the colors from that bag, Kangra bag. And we have a great tradition which the snobbish people say Kangra Valley painting, lower, etc. But not at all. They are the right thing to do in that environment. And then we of course had another very great advantage. We had paintings on the wall as well. So we had the static element and we had the movement element. And movement in cinema is the very first like he was also when he was speaking about, the discrete and the continuum. It's a continuum which we have to create, which is like a dream continuum. It is not a real continuum, it's a dream continuum. It is a mental space. And that continuum has to free the color of its name, of its saturation, of its static quality, and even just the associated qualities. So that suppose you come this way, and until I'm seeing you there, I'm calling this what you're wearing, kind of greenish blue something. But very often in Kaspa, in fact, I did it because the paintings were also trying that, not that they can do it. One of the things you must, it's lovely to be able to share with all of you, is that we should never look at miniatures on the wall. We should look like this. They're illuminations, like a book. And the thing is that they actually change the movement. If you do this, just this much. So, like when you come from here to, suppose you come to hit me or to kiss me or whatever it is, accordingly, I might ask my cameraman that don't let my image flatten out, not only like the expression on your face, but the color. Don't let it be fixed. We often did that in Kaspa, Of course, I'd done it already to some extent in my other one, because I was very much concerned with the tone of the skin and all that. So he had violated the manual, and desaturated colors, put a warm light, there's a color temperature as well. So things of that sort. So that constantly that the signification changes. Now here again there's a technological challenge with the pixels. They've been trying to make films which are digital friendly. We've already come, and some people, stubborn asses like me, continue to work with photochemical thing. But in a way, it's a terrifying thing that when they're making film that is photochemical material to become so friendly with digital that these sort of things get cancelled out. And similarly, I was talking to Bresson's wife. I've talked about this now in an article. The subjunctive is disappearing from languages. Imagine the subjunctive, which is the most beautiful mode you can think of, because it talks of your desire, of your wish, of what may happen, prediction. I don't think people will be able to practice science as well if they cannot project. If the subjunctive really disappears from our languages, it's a terrifying thought, really terrifying. So that's how.
The light plays a role in the relationship of the movement and the light. That creates color after that.
Yes. And of course there is that other thing, how is in Mira's village. You know, maybe the village itself is as mythological as Mirabai. You know, they say this is where she lived, and somewhere was think about. In Rajasthani, she said, I'll wear kasuval and come to Krishna. So I asked my friend, taking me around, what is kasuval? He said, it's a color, it's a flower. So I said, like what? So then he said, like this, like what she's wearing, thin man. I said, like this. So doesn't it have another name? So it has another name. Then he said, like that, you know, she's wearing, it's like that, and like that. So one after another, so it was saffron, red, orange, all the colors, you know, which are in the warm section. Okay. Then we went around that day. Suddenly he saw the flower. As it happened, it was, you know, the time for it to come. And he jumped and picked it and showed it to me. And you know, all the colors were present in it. It was fantastic. So that's how we have to deal with it. I mean, this goes way beyond questions of realism, civilization. And that's why she used that word. She didn't say Zaman, Yerua, that word. Like if you speak to Bhaktu about any note in the scale, you can speak about it for hours together and you won't know which note he's talking about.